1955 was the year the Corvette finally grew a pair of cylinders. Modern Corvettes are known as sleek, powerful machines with an equal dose of speed and style. But back in the early days of production, the Corvette was an oddity. A neat-looking car built with new composite construction technology, but seriously underpowered by a straight-six engine and a wobbly suspension system that was far from confidence-inspiring. But thankfully, all of that would change. For the first 2 years of production, Chevrolet's Corvette was much more of a looker than a goer. But that all changed in 1955 because engineers stuffed the new small-block Chevy V8 under the hood, giving this car some much-needed power to go chase down Ford's new Thunderbirds. The 265 overhead valve V8 engine was the first version of one of the most popular V8 engines ever produced. The three 8/750-inch bore and 3-inch stroke made for a favorable bore-to-stroke ratio, and the little turbo-fire V8 easily outpaced the previous Blue Flame 6-cylinder. The two-barrel version developed 160 horsepower, but Corvettes received the Rochester 4-barrel and a special camshaft, making 195 horsepower. Finally, the Corvette had some guts under the hood and was no longer just a pretty poser. A subtle 1955-only tattletale was the big gold V. If you saw that, you were probably on your way to seeing the taillights as you were lined up against a powerful new V8 Roadster. The new V8 shaved 2.4 seconds off the 6-cylinder 0 to 60 time and kind of paved the way for a high-performance future. Only 700 of these were sold, but Corvette was evolving from a good-looking but quirky novelty car into a true American sports car. But the 265, it did have some issues. Stress cracks and pistons became a thing, and the engine was designed without an oil filter, so one had to be added if you didn't want to be changing your oil every week. But those shortcomings were resolved in the 1956 version. And although the big news was the turbo-fire V8, the 1955 Corvette was the first year for the new close-ratio 3-speed manual transmission, with the 2-speed power glide being optional. While the 55 Corvette finally got some much-needed power and innovation, suspension improvements to the Corvette were coming along a little bit slower. The 55 still rode on the basic design as the 54 and 53 cars, and its handling, well, it was less than stellar. A sneak peek into the future saw involvement of racer and engineer Zora Arkus Duntov getting his mitts on the chassis, with the resulting improvements giving Corvette power and road-holding performance. But the 55 cars, well, they just weren't quite there yet, and they pushed in the turns and tail wagged out back when the power was on in the curves. However, most of that was forgiven thanks to the amazing styling worn by these cars. And this one is apparently dipped in gypsy red, set off by just enough brightly chromed trim and white walled tires. The first year for tubeless tires in a Corvette, by the way. Race-inspired mesh headlight guards flank the toothy grin up front, and spacey little fins lead into simple taillights tipping the quarters. Cool exhaust tips through the rear bumper were a Corvette thing, as were the wispy chrome bumpers. And we dig that rear license plate greenhouse. It's a great-looking car from all angles. The interior remains simple and elegant, with gauges and the radio all neatly centered in the dash. It almost looks more like a speedboat inside than a car. But then again, that's kind of what a Corvette is by definition, right? The 6,000 RPM tach was legit for the 265 V8, and that little rev counter meter below the tach needle is a cool and unusual display. The seats appear more comfortable than they are, but this car was all about looking cool, not all-day ergonomic correctness. And the giant steering wheel, it offsets the tiny shifter in the manual shift cars. But the 265 grew to be the stuff of legends, and its offspring is powering many of the Chevrolet muscle cars here in the Brothers collection. I hope you've enjoyed our little look back at the humble beginnings of the small block Chevy, and we're going to wheel another one out next time, so maybe you can join us. Hit the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode of Muscle Car of the Week.